In the heritage sector, the classic demographic for an awful lot of and I'm massively generalising here, but this was discussed recently at the CBA meeting down in the southwest. People locally concerned about the results of cuts to their heritage and their built environment and their whole cultural kind of interest is a threat from cuts to the local authorities, that it has that trickle-down effect of, oh sorry, there's no money, that's going to have to either close or be mothballed or just not be cared for. And yet the very people who tend to get involved in the friends groups and the local societies have traditionally been the people who vote for the party that is causing that peril. As I say, that's a massive generalisation, and there's obviously lots of cases where that won't be the case, but broadly that is the case, and it's kind of, they're reaping what they sowed to a degree. But I don't say that with any comfort. I think it's sad that people are realising in our sector the results of their political choices.
So particularly at the moment, we're looking at the planning legislation that states that the things like non-designated assets, so these sites that archaeological companies are digging up, they are under the consideration of local planning authorities. So the level of protection that they're given is decided by these local planning authorities. However, the same planning legislation is reinforcing the importance of development at a local scale. So local planning agencies have the duty or have the ability to protect heritage or archaeological sites, but they're also under intense pressure to develop and develop and develop. And the danger is, if we start seeing more changes in these legislations, we will risk some archaeology being destroyed or being dealt with in a manner that is less applicable than others. And that's really important, because we've got to think about archaeological material as a finite resource. Once it's gone, it's gone.
It's a bit like fossil fuels.
Absolutely. But we can never ever write the narratives that we could have once the material is gone. So planning policy and the way that infrastructure and development are being led and driven in this country has a massive impact on archaeology. If it's done with archaeology in mind, it can be a brilliant thing. If it's done at the detriment of archaeology, and the danger is, planning policy at the moment almost sees fieldwork, archaeological fieldwork, as a hindrance.
Yeah.
Something that slows the whole process down. If that carries on, I dread to think what's going to happen. And it's important in this regard that we start looking at what the different parties' manifestos are going to say about planning policy. Since the Conservative Party have been in, it's notable that the changes in legislation have upped the ante on development and infrastructure, and has had a reduction in the amount of protection that archaeological and historical assets have. So it's important that we think about that, because if we vote without that in mind, and we vote for a party that is willing to sacrifice our heritage and the material that will ultimately tell us about our past, which in turn can tell us about who we are, if we sacrifice that for a few extra roads and a few new railway lines, I think the repercussions in the long term are massive.
Why do you think it's important for you to vote in this election?
Because I think, well, ironically, it probably isn't, because I live in a very safe Labour seat. But I think if I don't have my say, I won't feel personally entitled to grumble about what happens later on. But also, I think if I don't talk about what I see as fairly serious consequences coming down the line, socially and politically, I just wouldn't feel at ease with just sitting back and letting it wash over me. It's a simplistic thing to say, but nearly every seat is a swing seat when only 50 or 60% of the electorate bother to vote. Because that missing 30 or 40% could completely reverse the decision in the safest of seats. Well, ironically, because of just my situation in life and my time of life, makes me sound like I'm just going to go outside and play bowls for a bit. But, whichever government gets in, it won't probably affect me in the short term. Other than I'll probably be less happy about the world if it's the Tories, and I'll feel the future for me in the long term, but for my children, for the peer group around me, I guess in academia, is worse. Britain will be diminished by another 5 years of Tory government, I think, is the main point that I would say to students who are thinking of not voting.
Can one vote change anything? Because it's such a huge thing, but if everybody thinks like that, then it's not one vote anymore, it's everyone's vote.
Perhaps we should co-opt the motto of the gambling companies. You have to be in it to win it. Well, you've got phenomenal odds that you're not going to win it, but you're still going to spend your £1 or whatever it costs.
And voting's free. You know, people get up and put pounds, millions of pounds into the lottery, fully knowing that they're not going to win the thing, and maybe they're more motivated to go into the lottery than they are to actually vote. That is what I would ask of anyone, is to spend a bit of time and think about it. Know what each party's. Don't do a knee-jerk vote. Don't vote because people are telling you, oh, you know, they're going to win anyway, so you might as well go along, or that person's unelectable. You know, vote for what you think is right. If you are, you know, you're in university, which means that you are interested in the pursuit of knowledge and ideas, which means if there are parties with manifestos that are challenging the advancement of ideas, particularly if you're a student of archaeology, the advancement of the humanities and the arts, if you see parties that don't see the value, the strength and the depth that the arts and the humanities give to society, I think you've got to really think about making sure they don't get in. A lot of my motivation will be for personal reasons. Particular manifestos will help me and my personal life. So obviously my wife's American, and so I am not going to be voting for a party that has an incredibly aggressive anti-immigration policy, because the bottom line is, if the immigration laws change, my wife will be deported, and we are very aware of this fact. So I am, on a personal level, I am voting for anything that makes that as easy as possible for me. And also I'm going to be voting for the things that are potentially going to help me personally. Yeah. But I'm also going to vote, I'm going to choose to vote for the betterment of society. And I'm going to choose to vote in a way that will help people as I think people should be helped. Yeah. I want to vote so people, not humans, but people can be helped.
I don't have particularly rose-coloured spectacles or rose-tinted spectacles about Corbyn. I can see there are areas that have caused issues since he was elected twice by the membership. But I don't see the weak leadership thing particularly. I think, for one thing, to put up with the crap he's put up with, both internally and externally, and not have just said, you know what, I'm off. I'm going back to my allotment. I'll leave it to you guys. Shows a certain strength of character and sort of tenacity that actually I would want in the leader of a country. You know? Not to just buckle under pressure and flounce off. Cameron springs to mind. You know, and Osborne and various others before them involved in the Brexit thing. That, you know, they put their heads above the parapet and it got shot off. And now they've just retreated into the after dinner circuit, and I don't see that happening with Corbyn. Britain is a wealthy country. We used to be wealthier. I think we've gone from 5th to 7th in the 18 months or so that we've been trying to isolate ourselves from Western Europe. But you know, people pay taxes, either personal, corporate, or purchase. You know, VAT type tax, and that goes into the exchequer, and we spend it. That's the way the country works. And you know, just the way you choose to spend it afterwards. It's not a case of, which there seems to be a myth of this. You know, if Labour get their own way, you know, everyone will pay massive amounts of tax and it'll just be squandered in a silly fashion. Well, that's just not. It's not historically correct, and it's not necessarily. It doesn't follow that because you nationalise something or because you pay for it out of central taxation, it has to be squandered. It has to be wasteful. You know, people give the examples of British Leyland and companies like that, but the fact something was badly run and was in the public sector, you know, there's countless more examples of things that are badly run in the private sector and things that are well run in the public sector. It's a simplified nonsense of an argument. You know, we have the situation at the moment with trains, for example, where we kind of nationalise the losses and privatise the profits, but we also say, well, no, we're going to have a privatised transport system, put it out to tender, and then the French government run our trains because it's their nationalised carrier that wins the contract. So we've got a national carrier running our trains. It's just somebody else's nation. Register at either your university town or your hometown.
When's the date for registration? Is it 22nd?
Yeah,
something like
yeah.
that?
So there's a couple of weeks where people can kind of think, well, I've got the choice to vote where I live in term time or at home, and that is a tactical decision.
Yeah.
And should be made if you've got the luxury of making that based on where your vote can best prevent a
So that's a unique thing for students, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, it's quite.
I've not really thought about that. They have two choices.
Yeah, yeah. If you're not on the electoral roll in either of your homes, you know, your family home or your student home, you can pick which one will best deliver your chosen outcome. Now, your chosen outcome might be a Tory government, but you have to ask those students, well, you know, do you not have any elderly relatives? Do you not bother about your peer group and their future? Is it acceptable for you just to vote Tory because in your personal small situation you'll be either rewarded or unaffected?
Yeah.
You know, and if that's your decision, fine, but at least vote and at least register.
Yeah.
You know, but ideally, vote, register, and kind of do.
So
the
you've
right
got
thing.
like a three stage model that you are pushing forward, which is to make sure you register.
Yeah.
Decide where you can tactically vote most effectively in relation to your views, and ideally have views that align with yours.
Get registered to vote. Know what things are important to you and what you think is important for your future as individuals and for the future of the country you live in. Become familiar with the manifestos of the parties and then make your choice. But make it an informed choice. By having the vote, we have the power already, and it's time to exercise it.